I'm delighted to welcome today Tanya Ces Maneiro from Maidenhead in the UK, who is a career coach. Welcome, Tanya.
Hi, nice to be here.
So, first question, obviously, what is a career coach?
So a career coach is somebody who, well, what I do as a career coach, I think there's a lot of different things that you can do as a career coach, but what I do as a career coach is help people who are at a career crossroads. So they're not quite sure which direction they want their career to take. And I help them work out the best way to go with their career. And also on top of that, I work with individuals to kind of progress within their chosen career and to make the best of what they've got and excel within their career.
Okay, lovely. So like many coaches, I'm sure you've got various tools up your sleeve. So how do you do what you do?
Through a lot of exploration. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of careers out there. So I'm not somebody who is going to be able to tell you every single career option that there is going. So it's around looking at passions, career priorities in terms of, you know, what is it that you really need to be happening in your career, like, you know, the sort of flexibility of the job or the culture of the company and all those kinds of things. We look at values. What are the values that you hold and are most important to you around your career? What makes you want to get out of bed in the morning, kind of thing. We look at your strengths, and I use a tool called Strength Scope with people, a profiling tool, to help them identify that, because sometimes people find it quite difficult to tell you what they're good at. And, you know, we set goals. Sometimes we work on people's confidence because that can have taken a knock for whatever reason, and start to almost like put together a kind of bank of ideas of where we can go, you know, with the career. And then there's a lot of research and talking to people and trying things out until we hit the right place and where they want to go in their career.
I was talking to somebody the other day and we were referring to fresh eyes. When we're in our own bubble, so to speak, we can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
When somebody like you comes in with fresh eyes and with the experience that you have and the training, it can put a different perspective on something that's the same thing, but maybe with a different spin on it. So you know, a different approach to mindset. And you mentioned about confidence and values and all that good stuff. But passion to me is the crux of anything we do. If we're not passionate about the thing we do, we should get the hell out and do something else. And so many people I find go through life in a career that they're not suited to, they don't like, they just do it because it you know, it's something that gives them the income that they need. Do you find that a lot, or am I talking nonsense?
No, not at all. It's just really sad, actually, that there's so many people out there. I read a statistic somewhere, and, you know, who knows whether it's true or not, but that, you know, 75% of people are in jobs that they actually don't like. And I find that really sad, that people are settling for something that doesn't really interest them. When, you know, and I'm not saying it's easy trying to work it out, because there's so many different options out there to you. But, you know, if you have a look at and really kind of consider, and as you say, have somebody to help you, because sometimes it's not very easy doing it on your own, then there is a path, there is a way forward where you can find something that you actually enjoy doing and you get paid for.
It's so important, because if you enjoy what you do, you get paid for it. You never actually work. I have this saying, I've never done a day's work in my life, because I've always enjoyed what I do, and I've done lots of different things. And if I've got fed up with the thing I'm doing, or, you know, it's kind of outgrown it or whatever, then I go, you know, I've gone on to something else. But you're right with the statistics. 75% of people, I've seen that written many times. It often comes from surveys that the Chambers of Commerce do, and it's really consistent. I'm quite a lot older than you are now, and I've been hearing that all my working life.
Yeah, I have too, but I wasn't sure where it came from, so I didn't want to sort of just, say it's a definitive number, but it has, I've seen it around quite a lot as well. So, and it's I sort of hope it's not true, but I think it might be.
It's true. Yeah, unfortunately, and I've witnessed it in many, personal scenarios as well, where people are clearly in the wrong job. I mean, you see it time and time again, bus drivers who don't like people, Hello.
Yes, I know. Actually, part of the reason that I decided to do it was because I've been in 3, I think this is my 3rd or 4th career, and I started off in completely the wrong job for me, and then moved on quite quickly. So I kind of have experienced, I've been through some of the stuff that other people are going through, I suppose, which helps me to understand where they are. I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking, well, not only have I been in various jobs that I didn't like, I've also had, overcome difficult circumstances within jobs as well, which helps when you're sort of trying to help others, I think.
Absolutely, the lived experience, I think it's called, in this modern world. Yes. So you mentioned a tool that I'd not heard before, Strength Scope. Tell us about that. How does that work?
So it's a really interesting tool, actually. It's something that I've only was trained on about a year ago. I sort of came to my attention, and I thought, oh, this could be a good addition to to what I'm offering, because sometimes, as I said, I say, what are your strengths, and people go, I don't know, and it sort of takes it away from them. So it's a questionnaire, takes about 25 minutes to complete, lots of questions, and it essentially sort of tests people. What I like about it is it comes from like a positive psychology side of things, where it's going, what are you good at or have the potential to be good at, but also what gives you energy. So it's because I think sometimes we can be good at something, but we don't necessarily enjoy doing it. So I talked to a client who had been in a job for maybe 3 years. He was in an organization for about 20 years, and one of the roles that he took was very detail orientated. And he said, I was good at the detail, and people used to tell me that I was good at what I did. But did I want to get out of bed in the morning? No, I absolutely hated going to work for those 3 years. And then I moved back into more of a strategic position, and I was back, into the stuff that I love doing. So it helps I like that piece around, that you actually energizes you on top of the fact that you're good at it, which I think is what a lot of people think is what strengths is all about. So it identifies people, and it's a little bit like other sort of profiling tools, in terms of it looks at kind of, people versus task, the strengths of people versus task. But what's different is not a behavioral tool. It is all around the strengths. And but it's people versus task, and then it's internal versus external. So it's looking at kind of the internal stuff, like the thinking, and how you make decisions, that's sort of some of the strengths are bunched into that section. Then you've got some of the strengths that are bunched into the kind of internal, how you deal with emotions, resilience, and all that kind of stuff. And then you've got the external side with the people, which I scored very highly in, which is kind of good, because obviously I'm a coach, so I need to like people and want to work with people. So the people and external is all about collaboration and developing people and all that external stuff that you do. And then finally, it's all the results, getting results, the task, and delivering on things as well. So it looks at all those areas, and you get your 7 significant strengths that come out of it. And then it's something, it's a starting point where discussions can then grow from that, as to, do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? Let's look at some of the areas that have come out as non-strengths. Are they sort of things that you're doing in your role currently and you want to avoid in the future?
That's interesting. You use the phrase non-strengths. People tend to use the term strengths and weaknesses. I use limitations. So non-strengths, that's it's another version, isn't it? It sounds very similar to the DISC model, which I know that you've used as well, but it gives 7 as opposed to the DISC traditionally is 4, but we know there's lots and lots of blends. But none of this is about putting people in a box, is it?
No, I always use it as one tool that we then a starting point that we can then move from and discuss around, because I think, you know, with any of these things, I think it's good in terms of this person has filled it in themselves. So sometimes it can be useful, and I often say that in businesses as well, it can take away some of the kind of accusation that they might feel about you're like this and you're like that kind of thing. They've completed it, so it's come out the way that they've completed it, and then it's just around oh well, you know, it says this, what do you think about that, as opposed to you are like this and that, you know, and you've got no room for maneuver. It's just a good starting point.
Excellent. And how does that link with DISC, or would you use Strength Scope and DISC with the same person, or did you pick and choose which you use?
Sometimes I do. I sort of play around with it. It depends what the person needs really, and whether I think it's going to be useful or not. Because, you know, Strength Scope's a reasonably recent addition. I used to use DISC, you know, all the time with people, and, you know, use it as a way of because that's a personality profiling tool. It was more around kind of jobs that suited them in terms of, as I said, you know, people-y jobs. You were talking about bus drivers that don't like people. So if you're somebody that doesn't like people, there's certain jobs that probably wouldn't suit you. If you're very task orientated, you might, you know, an analyst role, for example, might be more suitable. If you hate looking at detail and stuff, then maybe that's not such a great role for you. So you can kind of work around that. But also I like this with regards to communication and the different styles of communication, and just thinking about, so maybe if the person has had some difficult communications within their role recently, whether they've, you know, one of the biggest reasons people leave jobs is because of their manager. So, you know, maybe they've struggled with their manager, and it's just giving them a little bit more of an insight into that, so that they can then take that when they move forward and go, okay, what can I do differently? Because wouldn't it be lovely if we could change the manager? Now, if you're using DISC in an organization and you're doing it with the whole team, that's a different thing, because everyone can discuss it, and it gets quite interesting around the different ways people like to behave. But if you're just using it with the one person who's either looking to develop in their career or looking for a new job, it's about, you know, they're the only one that's in the know about these things. So they're the ones that could maybe change the way they behave depending on the person they're interacting with. I went off a bit of tangent there, but
no, it's fine. It will make sense. And it's about knowing thyself, isn't it? When you know yourself, knowing how you behave, how you can potentially rub other people up as well, because we're all different, and you've got the internal, external, people and task orientated aspects, and of course we have all of those in us to a greater or lesser extent. Some are more obvious than others, but what I find when I'm using DISC, these days I use it regarding health and well-being, so I can tell whether somebody's in alignment or not, as you'll be able to as well. And it's there's a misalignment, it causes health problems. So these days I'm a health mentor, so I can identify whether somebody is ill by looking at their DISC behaviour profile. I can tell the likelihood of them being close to burnout, or maybe if they've already burnt out, etc. And with the training that I've got now in health and well-being that I've been doing for many years, I use DISC for that. In the past I've used it for the traditional corporate team stuff and appraisal, recruitment and all that malarkey, but it's very much for health. And I've got my own tool that I've had developed on the back end of my website, so perhaps we can do that offline if you'd like to have
I'd love to have a look at that.
All of this stuff, you know, it's great, but sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I'm looking after my friend's dog, and she's kind of half on my lap.
She's wanting to join in.
Yeah, and she did this morning, or the second podcast I've done today, and earlier on she did exactly the same. I think hearing the voices and thinking there's somebody else in the room and wanting to know what's going on. So yeah, as you say, the tools are a starting point. So it's not about putting people in boxes and you're this type of person, you're that type of person.
No.
But again, trying to find the passion, trying to find the, what gets you out of bed in the morning is so important. And going back to the health side of things, if you are in a role that doesn't suit you, that you're not happy with, you will become ill. It's not negotiable. It's a fact. So it's really so important to drive that home. So if somebody finds themselves at a career crossroads, what do they do? What's some, give us some tips that you can offer to help people?
So I would first of all reflect about, what is it, as I talked to you before, sit and reflect on what you like doing, what you don't like doing, what you're good at, what you're not good at, all those kinds of things. My key tip, I suppose, is to, once you've worked out a kind of, done all the things that I talked about that I would do with my clients, if you can do it on your own, then, look at your passions, look at your priorities, look at your career drivers, all that kind of thing. Once you've done that, it's about, and you've highlighted which role you're looking for, it's about the networking piece as well. So it's kind of talking to people. I always suggest to people that they talk to people who are in the role that they're interested in, because they might have thought about, okay, there's sort of a few things that sound interesting to me. Who do you know that does the role, or maybe has a friend that does the role? Who is there, anyone you can reach out to on LinkedIn where you can kind of say, I'm just interested in having a 10-minute conversation about the role, and because the more you can find out and the more you can talk to people, and I know a lot of people, so I often, with my clients, introduce them to people who are very kind and put up with me going, oh, you wouldn't mind just talking to this person for a bit, would you? So just because then you can get a feel. I had a client who was interested. She'd narrowed it down to 5 different careers, and she was doing a lot of research on various things, and I just happened to know someone in one of the careers that she'd narrowed it down to, and so she went and talked to him, and she said, no, that career is not for me. Well, that's brilliant as far as I'm concerned, because that means that she's now got 4 careers, and actually it was that and another one that were particularly of interest. So then she joined a forum for the other career, started talking to people about it, which is really good, finding out a bit more about what it all involves, and thought, yeah, that's the one I want to go for, and she went and is excelling in that career now. So it's talking to people, and the other thing I suggest is volunteering as well. If you can, if you've got the time, if you've got the capacity, or then financially you're able to, I work with a lot of people who've been made redundant and have been given a certain amount of money as a redundancy package, and they might have a little bit of time, and I'm like, use the time wisely, go and volunteer in certain areas, even if it's not something that you think you'll necessarily do long term. You don't know who you'll meet, you don't know who they'll know. So that, my biggest tip is about talking to people and trying to find out, and trying on before you buy as well.
Brilliant. How do people get hold of you, Tanya?
In many ways. Lots of people find me through Google, apparently, it seems. So, but my website is www.vidacoaching.co.uk. And they can also find me on LinkedIn. Tanya Ces Maneiro is not a particularly common name, so I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, all my details are there, so they can find me on those 2 places. Marvellous. So vidacoaching.com. .co.uk.
Beg your pardon. Yeah. Vida, coaching.
Yes, it means life in Spanish. So
fabulous. Lovely speaking with you today, Tanya.
Thanks very much for having me.